What's the YouTube? Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you an Altergeist profile. So massive shout out to Shane, who has helped me kind of put this deck together. He started off with a base list. I've added some of my own spicy interactions within the deck as well, and just cards that I feel could be very, very good in the upcoming format. I feel that Altergeist is a very good deck and can compete at the right level because a lot of people still don't know what the new cards do, so it does have a very nice surprise factor. The best thing about Altergeist and how they've changed over the new introductions to the deck is they've become more of a combo line as well as a control orientated deck, and they have the ability to push for an OTK a lot more consistently than it did in previous builds. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. With all of that out of the way, I'm going to dive headfirst into the profile, show you what we've got, explain why we've got it, and then if you do have any questions, put them in the comments down below. So for the Altergeist, of course, you're starting off with your triple Marionetta. This is your main normal summon of the deck. I mean, technically its effect will only trigger when it is normal summoned, but it is the one you want to go to. The next one you'd probably want to consider normal summoning is, of course, your Altergeist Miluseek, and that's just to kind of search out your multi-faker. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Altergeist strategy, Marionetta has the ability to set an Altergeist trap directly from the deck to your spell and trap zone. You also have the ability to target an Altergeist card you control and one Altergeist monster in your graveyard. You send that card on the field to the grave, and if you do, you special summon the other monster from the grave. So it allows it to pretty much tag itself out for a graveyard multi-faker or a graveyard Miluseek if you need to. The reason that Miluseek is such a good card as well is it can attack directly, and when it inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you get to target a card your opponent controls and you send it to the graveyard. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you get to add an Altergeist monster from the deck to the hand except itself. Then, of course, you've got the most annoying and probably best card for the deck, and that is, of course, Multi-Faker. Now, the reason it's annoying is going against your opponent, just being able to set up the ability to bring out a Silquitus from the deck to bounce is insanely powerful. But the reason it's also annoying for you is that you cannot special summon monsters the turn you activate this effect except Altergeist monsters. So it does become very narrowed down. That doesn't mean we're not going to play other cards that we can utilize that effect from with the graveyard, from the extra deck, because sometimes you won't always guarantee to get Multi-Faker, and it is nice to have a secondary route should you want to. What makes Multi-Faker so good is if you activate a trap card except during a damage step, you get to special summon this card from the hand. If this card is special summoned, you can special summon an Altergeist monster from the deck in defense. So even if you activate an Imperm turn 0, you can still special summon out Multi-Faker. And more times than not, of a Multi-Faker, you're going to special summon out your Silquitus, and that's going to give you the ability to return the Multi-Faker back to the hand, and then target one card your opponent controls and return that to the hand. So it's a double bounce, and it lets you maintain your own resource for Multi-Faker, which is incredibly powerful. Now we are, well, more effective now more than ever is, of course, Altergeist Pukuri. Now, Pukuri is if an Altergeist monster you control would be used as link material for an Altergeist monster, this card in your hand can also be used as material. You can only use this effect once per turn. If an Altergeist link monster is link summoned to your field while this card is in the graveyard, except during damage state, you get to add it back to the hand. You can only use this effect once per duel. But the idea is, because we've got the new introduction of your Altergeist Adminia, and of course the new introduction of cards like your Malwisp, these just give you more consistent ways of being able to get multiple monsters on the board to get into a stronger Hex if the negates, or going up for a negate ability of your Adminia, which I'll talk about when we get to it. On top of that as well, Malwisp is a tuner, which does come up with some very spicy plays for some synchro builds if you want to. There is, of course, an Altergeist synchro monster, but it's not that great. I feel you do have better options. The only times that you'll want to go for the Altergeist synchro is when you basically lock yourself with your Multi-Faker. So Malwisp, for those that are unfamiliar, is if it's added from the deck to the hand, or just added to the hand except by drawing it, you get to special summon it. If it is normal or special, you get to target an Altergeist monster in your graveyard except itself and special summon it in defense. But for the rest of this turn, it cannot activate its effects, and you can only use each effect once per turn. So unlike Multi-Faker, this doesn't lock you, so it does give you that ability to go down a liner into Selene route, into a access code route if you want to. But even then, you're still only going to get one banish. You just get an incredibly powerful boss monster on the board. And then the last Altergeist monster is the one Kunkuri. A lot of people forget about this card, but I think it's very important, especially if your opponent doesn't know you have it. So when your opponent's monster declares an attack, if you control an Altergeist card, you get to special summon this card from the hand, and if you do, negate that attack. If this card is special summoned, you get to target a face-up card your opponent controls and negate its effect, so it can deal with back row and front row, which is really, really nice. Then for the hand traps, you've got triple Ash Blossom, and of course, triple Infinite Impermanence. Imperm is probably more important for this deck for the pure fact, like I said, if you open up this with a Multi-Faker, you can turn 0, Imperm your opponent, summon out your Multi-Faker, Multi-Faker summons out Seal Coitus, bounce the Multi-Faker, bounce your opponent's, one of your opponent's cards, and then you've already got a step ahead of your opponent already. For the last monster that we play as well is I'm still teching the Wannabe, and the reason I quite like Wannabe in this build is also like my Tractrix build. I do like the idea of not just going for Strike, but the idea that you could reveal Strike off of the Wannabe, turn 0 against your opponent, and you'll be able to set up a counter trap to protect your plays going forward. So with Wannabe, during the end phase, you get to send this card from the hand or field to the graveyard to excavate cards from the top of the deck equal to the number of unused spell and trap zones that your opponent has. And you can set one excavated trap to your field, but you send it to the graveyard during the next end phase. Also place the rest on the bottom of the deck in any order. Now the reason I like this so much is technically if you go first, you're just adding another trap to your build, to your board, and it can be a 1 of 5 option. So if you wanted to, you could main deck something like Judgment if you wanted to be a bit more defensive. But what I liked about Strike was the pure fact that if I go second, I can drop the Wannabe. Wannabe could ultimately set me a Strike, and then that can protect any of my plays going forward. You can also get access to stuff like Personal Spoofing, which even during the draw phase, you can activate this in response to one of your opponent's card effects, or you can get a direct access to a protocol, meaning that when you normal summon a Marionetta, even if they've got a Baron and they try to use Baron's effect, you can activate the protocol to negate and destroy, or you've got the ability for protocol to mean that your Altergeist monster's effects cannot be negated. So you've got loads of different targets, quite like in the Tractrix build, which is why I quite like the Wannabe option. For the spells, of course, Triple Prosperity. This is the best one for the deck now. Previously, when you didn't really care too much about the extra deck, you were just trying not to banish your Hextears. But now it's just a lot better to control what you do banish. So if you feel you're going to lock yourself under Multi-Faker every single turn, then you get rid of your non-Altergeist monsters. If you feel that you're not going to go in as deep of a grind game, you can get rid of some of your duplicates, like your one Hextear, maybe a Banshee, and everything else that you might want to consider. I've also got 2 droplets and 1 Call by the Grave. Obviously, as a trap deck, so you wanted to keep this at a minimum. I kind of decided to go with droplets over a main deck of Evenly Matched, just because this gives you the ability to negate a little bit more. And you do play more monsters in this build than a standard Tractrix build, so it does give you more targets to send off of the droplet. Not to mention, you could technically send a trap as well, which is quite important if your opponent is setting up back row. So it does give you a lot of different options. For the trap cards, of course, we've got the Personal Spoofing, which I would love it to be an Altergeist card, so it's searchable. Unfortunately, it is not. But the fact that you can trigger a Multi-Faker that you add off of the back of this is insane. If you activate Spoofing, sending back one of your monsters as cost, and then being able to add an Altergeist from the deck to the hand, on a new chain, because Multi-Faker is an if effect, it will then resolve and summon itself down. 2 protocol, I feel 2 is more than enough. Some people might play 3, it's entirely up to you. But the activation and effects of Altergeist cards activated on your field cannot be negated. So it doesn't mean that they can't negate the reveal in the hand of your Multi-Faker, but it does mean they cannot negate the effect on the field to summon from the deck. When your opponent activates a monster effect, you get to send one other face-up Altergeist card you control to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. You can only use this effect once per turn. Then we've got the 1 Manifestation. You target an Altergeist monster in your graveyard, special summon it, in attack position, annoyingly. And if you do, you equip it with this card. When this card leaves that field, destroy that monster. You can banish this card from the graveyard, target an Altergeist trap in your graveyard, and add it to your hand. So it lets you recycle your protocol. And ideally, what you're bringing back off the Manifestation is going to get returned to the hand anyway, so it doesn't get destroyed. Then the last 2 trap cards is the 1 Haunted Rock. The reason this is so important is it gives you a 1.5 card combo for the set that you go Marionetta, set the Haunted Rock, activate the Haunted Rock the turn it is set because it was set by the effect of an Altergeist card, and that will then allow you to trigger your Multi-Faker. You get to activate it the turn it was set. When this card is activated, you send an Altergeist monster from your hand to the graveyard. When your opponent activates a trap card, except during the damage state, you get to send an Altergeist monster from your hand to the graveyard, negate that effect, and if you do, destroy that card. So it's a nice bit of protection against Evenly Matched. But the idea is that it's a trap card that can be activated the turn it is set. You just need to keep in mind that it is mandatory that when this card is activated, you have to send an Altergeist monster from your hand to the graveyard. So it technically is a 2.5 card combo. It can be very, very specific, but it's just one of them ones, which is why you only want to play it at 1 and nothing more. And the last one is the Altergeist Revitalization. Target an Altergeist Link monster in your graveyard, special summon it. You can banish this card from the graveyard. Immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon 1 Altergeist monster. You can only use 1 Altergeist Revitalization effect per turn. So what's really cool about this is it's kind of like on the same part as Manifestation. Like technically Manifestation can bring back a Link monster anyway, but what Revitalization will give you is it gives you that ability for an additional normal summon. So it can be pretty good to get off of the back of your Wannabe, because you could technically activate this and then a later turn banish it and then get an additional normal summon, which means you can get a Marionetta plus a Melee Seeks, which can be very, very dangerous for your opponent, because your Marionetta is going to set up everything you need to. Melee Seek is going to give you a search, or heck, if you've only got a Melee Seeks but you've got this, you can banish this from the graveyard, get an additional normal summon, link off the Melee Seeks, and then search yourself out a Marionetta, normal summon, get your protocol, and you're good to continue playing. Moving on to the extra deck, of course, the most important Altergeist monster from the extra deck, in my opinion, is Yugioh. This is just your protection from Lightning Storms and Evenlies, which is the biggest issues against this deck, just because it blows out the back row like no tomorrow, which is when your side deck comes into play and you're able to play Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Yugioh requires specifically 2 Altergeist monsters. It gains attack equal to the original attack of each Altergeist monster it points to. And when a spell, trap, or effect is activated, quick effect, you get to tribute an Altergeist monster this card points to, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. If it is sent from the field to the grave, you get to add an Altergeist card from the deck to the hand. Now, because of Pukari and, of course, Maluwisp, playing Prime Banshee is absolutely insane. So during the main phase, you get a quick effect to tribute one other Altergeist monster, to special an Altergeist monster from your deck to your zone this card points to. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you get to target an Altergeist card in your graveyard and add it to the hand. But the idea is that being able to get into Prime Banshee gives you direct access, even without spoofing, to get to a multi-faker, and then that's going to lead you into a bounce during either player's turn. Or, ideally, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want it to help you link climb up into your Link 4s, being the Adminia and the Memory Gant. So your Adminia is the brand new one that we got out in Dune. So again, it is specifically Altergeist monsters, which is why all of your monsters you're going to be putting onto the board that come from the main deck are Altergeist. If it is Link summoned, you get to set an Altergeist trap directly from the deck. And then once while face up on the field, during the main phase, quick effect, you can send one card you control to the graveyard. Then target an effect monster your opponent controls and you take control of that target. If you do, it is also treated as an Altergeist monster, which is really, really important, because if that monster you take control of has a trigger effect, technically, because it's an Altergeist, it can be protected with your trap cards, with Protocol. And on top of that, because it's an Altergeist monster, it can then be used as Link material to get into your other Link monsters. For your Memory Gant, this one has, during the battle phase, quick effect, tribute one other monster. This card gains attack equal to that tributed monster's attack on the field. When this card destroys an opponent's destroys a monster by battle, you can destroy one monster your opponent controls. If you do, this card can make a second attack in a row. If this card would be destroyed, you can banish one monster from your graveyard instead. So again, your Wannabes, your Ashes, everything that is additional fodder can be banished to keep this on the board, and it just becomes a very fat stack boss monster in comparison to Adminia. Administrator is going to give you more control. This is going to give you more aggression, so it's just a nice little option of a one-off. For the non-Altergeist Link monsters, we play the one Link Karibo, the one Anima, the one Liner. I'm trying this out. The issue is, like, Liner now requires your opponent to have a Earth monster in the graveyard. A Light monster in the graveyard. So it really depends on the format of if there's going to be loads of Light monsters in the graveyard that can be special summoned back or not. Ideally, you want the Dark Charmer, but the reason that I fell on Liner was I felt that it was going to be a lot easier to get Maluwisp or get your Multi-Faker to the board, because technically you have 5 lights in the deck, whereas if you're going with Multi-Faker, you've only got the one light, 3 darks. So you could go for the Dark Charmer if that is more consistent in your area, but it's one of them ones that it's a little bit tricky, because ideally you want to go the Dark Charmer or Liner, bring back one of your opponent's monsters, and then link into Selene. Selene brings back one of your spellcasters from the graveyard. Of course, it does need to have spell cards in the graveyard or on the field, so it does become a little bit specific. If you don't want to be playing this, there are other targets you can play as well. Like, you're not restricted, apart from when you restrict yourself into Altergeists. But if you wanted to kind of increase stuff, you could double up Link Karibo, you could double up your Relinquish Anima. You could max out on your Adminia if you wanted to. It's just an idea like I wanted to play around with, because I wanted to get to Access Code Talker, and it's like, this is like your one card boss out, break what you need to. The Dark Charmer would be better, because if you go to the Dark Charmer and then into Selene, you're going to get 2 attributes that Access Code can banish and destroy. Whereas this route, you're only going to get 1, because you're going to have the light, and you're going to have to rely on having Link Karibo, Relinquish Anima, Yugioh in the graveyard. Another thing to keep in mind as well, that if you do go for Dark Charmer, what would make it a little bit better is the fact that you can turn your Melee Seeks into a Relinquish Anima or a Link Karibo, which are both dark. Mainly your Relinquish Anima because it stays as a spellcaster. And then you turn that plus an additional monster into your Dark the Dark Charmer. Dark brings back from the graveyard, goes into Selene and moves from there. So maybe you want to swap lineup for Dark. It's something that I need to be testing out before I can confirm which one I prefer. And then the last two cards are two Synchros because of Mallowisp. So you've got your Herald of the Arclight, which is basically your Melee Seeks plus your Mallowisp, which is really nice because then that's going to give you a nice technical mini macro and then a negate that you might need during your opponent's turn if you're trying to protect your Multi-Faker. And then the other one is the Arcanite Magician. And the reason you go for this is, again, it needs a non-tuner spellcaster. Very easy in this deck. And if it's Synchro Summoned, you place 2 spell counters on it. It gains a 1,000 attack for each. And then you get to remove 1 spell counter from the field to target a card your opponent tries and destroy it. Now that's not once per turn, so technically you get to pop 2 cards. And it means that it can pop any card. So it can deal with back row or front row, depending on what your opponent is trying to lock you under. And that does give you a lot to play around with. So that's pretty much it for the build. Like I said at the start, massive shout out to Shane, who kind of put the deck together. He's been playing it at locals. He's been doing incredibly well with it. And I was like, oh, I'm curious as to what Altergeist can now do. And what I like about how Altergeist are now is that they've shifted from being a full-on 100% control deck to a control deck with the ability to combo off as well, which is something that not a lot of people are going to be currently expecting from the deck. And I think it's really kind of cool and shakes up the type of play style for this deck, which is really awesome. The side deck will really pretty much consist of stuff like strikes if you've not got them in the main, D-barriers, secret villager to spellcasters, back row hate in forms of cosmics, lightning storms. Heck, you could very easily play anti-spell as well, which is really nice, and kind of move on from there. But for now, thank you so much for watching. If you do have any questions, by all means, please put them in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. But for now, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.